So when you go to the Sydney cricket ground, what makes the Sydney cricket ground fun is they do that Mexican wave, you know, people get up, arms go in the air, there's a roar, there's a scream, rubbish gets thrown in the air, and the wave just goes round and round and round, and then it hits the members stand, and they do nothing, and then everyone just boos the members, boo, and that's part of the ritual. And then the wave goes around and around and around again. Well, one year, a friend of mine who was a member, he invited me to the members stand. So we went to watch the cricket from the members stand, and then the wave started. And it's going round and round and round, and it's getting closer and closer and closer, and you can feel the panic in the members stand. Like, what are we going to do when this wave hits us? And there's this panic. And when it hits us, none of us does anything, and the crowd is just booing you. Boo, boo, boo. 50,000 people are booing you, and you're thinking, I have turned into that guy. I'm the guy they are booing. And that's what it feels like to be a Christian, I think, in today's climate. There's a bit of panic, there's a bit of fear, and we have become that guy because we're Christians and we believe in Jesus Christ. So tonight I'm going to just share a few things on how we might be able to tell our friends about Jesus in maybe a hostile environment. I think Australia has changed in the last 10 or 20 years, and how we can be sharing Jesus with our friends. And as I mentioned earlier today, I'm going to share with you some things that I find helpful. They're good tools to have in our toolkit. I'm not saying they're the best things. I'm not saying they're the only things. Do it this way or doing the wrong way. No, feel free to keep doing it the way you have been doing. You guys are experts at this as much as I am. But these are just some things I have found to be helpful, and you might find them to be helpful as well. So the first thing I want to share is this. We have to understand that the story has changed, and so maybe we have to learn to retell our story as well. First thing is this, the story has changed, so we need to learn new, different ways of sharing our story. And the story has changed because it's now the story in the Western cultural storyline. The Western cultural storyline goes like this. We once believed in a God, yes, but we also believed in fairy godmothers, unicorns, and witches. And then, poof, the Enlightenment happened in the 1600s, and it freed us. It set us free to think for ourselves. And so we reject traditional forms of authority. We reject the church. We reject the parents, and we reject the government. We don't let them tell us what to believe. We are free to think for ourselves. And so the Western cultural storyline is this. We have to be brave. We have to have the courage to be true to ourselves, to be real, to be authentic, to don't listen what other people tell you to do or be, but you have to be brave. It's not going to be easy, but you have to be true. You have to be real. Inside you is the real you. You have to have the courage to break out and to be who you are and not what other people tell you to be. And so as Christians, if we try to tell our friends about Jesus, we are the bad guys in this storyline because we're the traditional forms of authority that they have to be brave enough to reject, but we're the bad guys, we're the oppressors who are threatening to take away their freedom and return us back to the dark ages where, yeah, we believe in God, but also fairy godmothers, witches, and unicorns. So they have to be brave enough to not listen to what we say. So how can we speak Jesus into this new hostile storyline? Well, as I shared this afternoon in a different session, if you go to university and if you're Caucasian Australian and you go to university, you'll be thinking, wow, there are so many Asians. Where did all the Asians come from? There are more Asians here than in Asia. Like, how on earth is this possible? There are Asians everywhere. And then if you go to a university Christian group, you will go in there and think, there are even more Asians in the Christian group. I'm the only white person in the Christian group. How is this happening? How did Christianity become an Asian religion? Because that's actually what's happening. And in the whole world, Christianity right now it's exploding. It is exploding in Africa, in Asia, in Latin America. It is exploding. Estimates are in the next 10 or 20 years, 2 out of 3 Africans will know, love and worship Jesus. 1 in 3 mainland Chinese will know, love and worship Jesus. Every year, like 20 million Chinese, that's a population of Australia, every year are turning to Christ. So it's just exploding in these non-Western traditional cultures. Why? Because in non-Western traditional cultures like Africa, Asia, and Latin America, Christianity represents freedom. It's actually good news to an Asian. See, Christianity to an Asian is this. It means you are now, you are set free. You are set free from the fears, darkness, and superstitions of your traditional Asian religions. You are set free from the status anxiety imposed upon you by your parents. You are set free from the drive for success in the Asian culture. You are set free. So as an Asian Christian, and if you have Asian Christian parents, you look at your non-Christian Asian friends with non-Christian Asian parents, you think, wow, my life is better than theirs. Their life, by and large, is worse than my life because they're still stuck and trapped in the fear, darkness, and superstitious rituals, fear of evil spirits, but I've been set free from that. They're still locked in the status anxiety of Confucianism and their parents, but I've been set free from that. And they're still locked in that drive for success that's in the Asian cultural storyline, but I've been set free from that as a Christian. So by and large, you are so thankful that your parents are Christian and you're a Christian. Life is better for you as a Christian. There's freedom. That's what Jesus represents to an African, an Asian, and a Latin American. But to an Aussie, Jesus doesn't represent freedom. Jesus represents oppression. And, you know, there was a time when Australia was a traditional culture, maybe 20 or 30 years ago, when we had sense of absolutes and duty and obligation to our country and to traditional authority. There was a time. So if we had said something like, there are laws, you have broken these laws, and you are guilty, so you need forgiveness, they would have understood you in Australia 20 or 30 years ago. But now you say that, it sounds like, whoa, we are going to impose upon you arbitrary social constructs and take away your freedom. And so to a Caucasian Australian, when you look at your Christian Caucasian friends, by and large, you feel like life is worse for them. They've got more rules to follow. They've got to go to church on Sunday. You feel more free as a non-Christian Caucasian. And again, Christianity represents oppression and bad news to a Caucasian Australian. And so I remember I had to speak just a few weeks ago at a church. I gave an evangelistic talk, and they had a lady get up and share her testimony. And you could tell she'd been coached to share her testimony in a certain way. And what she said was true, but it just sounded oppressive to a non-Christian audience. Because she said something like this: I used to live my life my own way, which sounds great to a non-Christian, but now I live Jesus' way, which sounds terrible to a non-Christian. Again, it confirms to them everything they fear about Christianity. We're going to impose rules upon them and take away their freedom, and now you're no longer allowed to live for yourself. So again, we're sort of opposing the storyline. So we need to explore different ways of telling the Christian story. So they're all true, they're all biblical, but they're different entry points that connect with a culture, an emotion, and a heartfelt need. So here's just one way, and maybe you can find your own ways. This is how I usually explain Christianity then to people. You know, I wanted to be free. I wanted to be free. I was chasing freedom, but whatever I was living for was owning me. You know, we all have to live for something, otherwise we've got nothing to live for. But whatever I lived for was owning me and destroying me. Because if I live for work, and if work's going to give me freedom, now it's going to overwork me and it's going to own me and destroy me. If I live for my family and I try to make them my trophy family, hey everyone, look at my trophy family, I will destroy them because I'm making them be something they can never be, and I'm imposing my fears and insecurities upon them and destroying them. So in the end, whatever we live for won't set us free. It'll actually own us, destroy us, or will destroy it. But Jesus has come to set us free, because now With Jesus, God loves me just the way I am. I can stop pretending to be someone I'm not. Jesus sets me free. He's the good God who loves me, who made me, and now I can enjoy the good things He's given me for what they are. And I don't have to make more of them than what they are. I don't have to make less of them what they are, but I don't have to make more than what they are. So now Jesus sets me free. So this is a new way that we can explain the gospel, I think, that latches onto our cultural storyline. So just the other week, I was doing a lot of traveling. I was catching a lot of Uber rides. And you know, with Uber, you got to sit in the front seat to get your 5-star rating. And then you got to make conversation, get your 5-star rating. It's just terrible for me because they always ask me where I'm going. And I think, oh, it's like watching a slow-moving train wreck. Okay, so I can predict the moves. Where are you going? I'm going to a restaurant. Oh, why? Why are you going to a restaurant? Okay. Rip it off. It's like a Band-Aid. Let's just get home done with. I'm a full-time ordained Christian minister. I'm going to the restaurant to give a talk about Jesus from the Bible. We got it all over and done with it, rather than like slowly, spiraling into it. And then there'll be a pause, and then and I'll share more about this later. But basically, I just throw it back to them. I say, well, do you have a faith? I give them permission to stay in that space. Okay, yes, we got there way too early. We're meant to talk about the weather. We're meant to talk about a sport. But we got here way too early, way before we were ready for it. But let's just embrace it for what it is. I'll throw it back at you. And if you feel safe talking about this, we will. So I just say, do you have a faith? And as I shared last time I was here last year, surveys still show 60 to 80% of Australians have a faith. 60 to 80% of Australians believe in a supernatural God. They feel they should be more spiritual than what they are. They might pray, and they believe in life after death. So I throw to them, you have a 60 to 80% chance that they will say, yes, I have a faith. And if they say, no, I'm an atheist, that's still a faith-based position. So what I do now is I generally want to know as much about them as possible. I go, wow, tell me about that. Tell me about that. So this lady, this night, I said, do you have a faith? She goes, no, my mother's very religious. My sister's very religious. But you know what? I think it doesn't matter. You can believe whatever you want to believe, whether there's God, whether there's no God, it doesn't matter because in the end, there's beauty. It's all about beauty. Now, I have 3 options right now. And apparently there are 3 ways you can listen. You have 3 options. Option number 1 is, okay, when's my turn to speak? So let her talk. Just thinking, okay, hurry up because I want you to stop so I can come in with what I want to say. That's one way of listening. The second way of listening is, okay, I want to listen to you so I can rebut you and show you why you're wrong. You know, no, not all religions are the same. No, you can't just believe what you want to believe. So how do I rebut that? But that's actually a third way of listening. And that's just take an interest in the person for who they are. Treat them as a human being, not someone you're going to debate, not someone that you're waiting to stop talking so you can talk. Let them talk. Get to know them. Treat them like a human being, a real person. And there are 3 things you're doing when you're listening. All right. First thing is you're trying to listen, then you understand, and then you feel the emotion behind what they're saying. You've got to get to that third level before you've heard someone properly. So fellas, this is everything you were taught in marriage counselling. Remember? Remember marriage counselling? If you have a fight with your wife, remember what you're meant to do? You're meant to listen, and all you do is say, I hear, from what I hear you saying, and you just repeat her words back at her verbatim to show you a hearing. And then you say, oh, I understand, and then you just summarise her words in your words to show you are performing some high analytical thinking. And not just parroting her words back at her. And the third one is you go, oh, that must make you feel blank, and you just guess an emotion. And it's always going to be anger. It's always... So let's say my wife says, oh, you're not taking out the garbage often enough. All I have to do is say, oh, from what I hear you saying, I'm not taking the garbage out enough. Oh, I understand I'm not playing my part in the house duties. Oh, that must make you feel angry. And your conflict is resolved. So My wife caught me telling this advice to some of my guy friends, and she said, oh, if I ever catch you doing that to me. So I said, oh, from what I hear you saying. So what we're trying to do is empathetic listening. You do not earn the right to speak until you've heard, understood, but also felt the feeling, the emotion. Why would they want this position to be true? And there will be a legitimate feeling and reason for why they want this position to be true. So you just want to hear them, understand them, and feel them. So she talked about beauty. So I go, oh, tell me about beauty. How do you look for beauty? So she talks about how she goes to the beaches, sometimes just enjoys a sunset. Sometimes she picks up shells and just admires the beauty. And I'm going, I try to get her talking more and more. And my friend James Veltmeyer, who's an amazing speaker and evangelist down in Tasmania, he also acts as a mentor to people. So they say one of the ways you show that you want to listen and you don't want to talk, really, I want you to talk, I don't want to talk, is you have a drink in your hand and you just keep putting a drink in your mouth, meaning, I'm not talking, I'm not going to talk, I really, really want you to talk. Please, keep talking. So you ask them a question, tell me more, and as they talk, you put the drink in your mouth and show, I really am not going to talk. I'm not going to interrupt you, I just want you to keep talking. And it's actually very effective. People will talk once they feel safe. Once they feel that you will hear, understand, and you're giving them a safe space to talk. And I remember when I was seeing a counsellor, I knew exactly what this counsellor was doing, that she was trying to get me to talk, and I'd always go in there, I'm not going to talk. But sure enough, by the hour, you cannot stop talking, because she's not talking. So you have to keep talking. I keep thinking my voice in my head, stop, you're hanging yourself. She's just giving you enough rope for you to hang yourself, just stop. But I couldn't stop talking. And basically, you're just trying to get someone it's okay, I'm not going to attack you, you're going to be safe, please keep talking. And as I shared with you last time, there are 3 layers to conversations. The outer layer is interest, the middle layer is values, and the central layer is worldviews. So conversations always begin with interest, because that's safe. We're not going to argue about interest. And so that's where you say, hey, what did you do on the weekend? Boy, how blue was the sky? What books are you reading? Because that's not going to start an argument. Like you say, what books are you reading? I'm reading this book. No, you're not. Yes, I am. No. And then when people feel safe enough talking about interests, they will invite you in. And the chaplains teach me, they'll give you 1 hint, 2 hints, 3 hints. So they're trying to bring you into values, the value layer. And your job is to listen for the invitation to come in, to ask them a question, to say, yes, I want to hear more about the values layer. So that's all your job, waiting for the hint that they're trying to invite you into the next layer. And they'll give you 1, 2, 3 goes. If you don't pick up the 3rd hint, they come back out to the interest, and that's it. You're just talking about the weather and sports and books again. But if you pick up on the hint and come into values, they'll stay in values for a little while, and then they'll drop a hint, they want to come into worldviews. So our job as a listener is to pick up on the invitation or to invite ourselves in. Like if you say, what did you do on the weekend? They say, oh, I played touch football. And you go, yeah, how good is touch football? And then you could ask the question, why do you enjoy touch football so much? To answer that, they've got to use values. And if they feel safe, they will come into values. But if they don't feel safe, they keep going, whoa, how blue was the sky? And they're like, yep, okay, let's stay in interest. You don't want to talk about values, and that's okay. And in values after a while, why do you like touch football? They say, I love being healthy. Health is important. See, that's a value statement. And then if you ask them, well, why do you think health is important? To answer that, they need a worldview answer. They might say, well, I think this life is the only life you have, so you've got to look after your body now, or otherwise what else are you going to do? So that's a worldview answer. So you're trying to either hear the invitation come in, or you invite yourself in. And then when you're in, you just listen. The job is to listen so they feel safe, heard, understood, and empathised with. And then at some stage, they will reciprocate. They will reciprocate. Like if I ask you what you did on the weekend, at some stage you will say, okay, well, what did you do on the weekend? That's the polite convention. And if I let you go for a minute, you will give me a minute. If I gave you 20 minutes, you will give me 20 minutes. So that's sort of the convention. And if you've been civil to them, you heard, understood and felt them, they will feel like they want to do the same for you, at least give you a fair hearing. So I don't know if I shared with you last time when I was here last year, I was going down to Adelaide on a plane, about to give a talk on what to do when this happens. And when I jumped in the plane, before I could get the headphones into my ears, the international symbol for do not talk to me, the man next to me says, "Oh, why are you going to Adelaide?" And I think, oh, it's a slow-moving train wreck. You've initiated a launch sequence. Oh, okay, here we go. And then he said, work or play? And I said, work. And then I quickly flicked it to him because I didn't want to talk about me. So why are you going to Adelaide, work or play? He goes, oh, I'm going home. I was actually just in Sydney giving talks. Oh, he wants me to ask about the talks. Okay, what were the talks on? He said, I was giving talks to postgrad doctors on the physics of MRI scanners. I thought, oh, I did that exam 10 years ago. We have something in common. Oh. And then he said, well, what are your talks on? I said, oh, okay. I'm an ordained Christian minister. I'm giving talks from the Bible about Jesus. And there's silence. So I thought, oh, I'd be such a hypocrite if I don't do this. I said to him, do you have a faith? And he said, well, funny enough, you should ask. When I was a teenager, I checked out Christianity in South Africa, and that's when I found out it was a front for hate crimes against gay people. And I said, wow, tell me about that. Tell me how you journeyed to this belief. And I got him talking for the next 90 minutes. Like, never interrupting him, putting a drink in my mouth, like, you just keep talking. I'm listening, dude. And at the end of the 90 minutes, I said to him, okay, from what I've heard you say, I understand this, and that must make you feel very angry at Christians. Am I correct? He said, yes, you are so correct. And I said, you have said these three things, that Christians are anti-gay, that they're anti-scientific, and all religions are the same anyway. Have I heard you correctly? He said, yes. And then there's silence. And then I said, would you like me to respond? He said, yes. So he gave me the next 60 minutes to monologue. He never interrupted me. And when the plane landed, he said, oh, thank you. You made that plane flight go so much quicker. I thought, oh, not for me, did it? But then, of course, there's a time and place to speak, but I'm thinking this is a really way of having a lot of space to speak. So with the Uber driver, when she said, I believe in beauty, I said, wow, tell me more. Tell me more. So I got her talking as long as I can. And she obviously didn't want to talk to me about Christianity. Her mother's religious, her sister's religious. She didn't want to hear it again from me. But there's this long pause. And then, so finally she's got to ask me a question. She goes, oh, well, do you have kids? So she's in interest right now. I go, yep. Okay, I have kids. And then I said to her, well, you're not going to believe this, but because she's trying to work out when I had kids, when I got married. I said, okay, I got married really late. I had kids really late. I'm way older than I look. I'm turning 51 this month. And she goes, whoa, how are you turning 51? Is it all the clean living? And I said, heck no. I said, no way. Like, I love my beers. I brew beers. And then I said to her, so, you know, Jesus' very first miracle was turning water into wine, don't you? And she goes, I'd never thought of that before. And then I said, well, you know, read about it. He was at a wedding. So now I'm telling you a story about Jesus. We're in Worldview now, just like that. And then but she's feeling safe enough to talk about it. And she's intrigued. I said, very first miracle was turning water into wine. And the reason why they ran out of wine was the guests had drunk all the wine. And in the original Greek, it says they were drunk. They were drunk. Jesus had no right giving them more wine. They were drunk. Jesus would have failed his responsible serving of alcohol license in Australia, but he gives them more wine, good wine, and so much wine. Now they got kegs left over. And I said, so I get to tell her the story, and I said, do you know why Jesus did this? It's actually a symbol of what life is like with Jesus. That's why it's the very first miracle. When Jesus comes, he's come to give us freedom, abundance and joy. So I'm using her language now. And then she goes, wow, tell me more. I said, well, yeah, did you notice in the Bible, every time someone receives Jesus, they receive him with joy. There's a joy in knowing Jesus. And then she says, well, tell me more about Jesus. Well, what do you believe? And I've actually given you like 4 or 5 tools, but it's all organic tonight. So I hope you... But one tool is this. I learned this from Timothy Keller. Learn to tell the story of Jesus as a story. And there's 3 good memory hooks. Manger, cross, king. Manger is Jesus comes to us as a person. And he died for us on a cross to save us and set us free. But there will be days coming again in the future to set up a physical kingdom here on earth. So we've actually got a mission right now, which is to set up Jesus' love, mercy and justice on this earth, to set up his kingdom on earth. And so I find that no matter what question someone asks me, I can use this thing to answer their question. So she goes, tell me more about Jesus. So I can instantly go, wow, this is what Christians believe. In traditional Orthodox Christianity, we believe that Jesus is the Son of God. He came to us as a human. He did these amazing things while I was on earth, like turn water and wine. He had a concern for the weak, the poor, the marginalised and the oppressed. But more than that, he died for us on a cross to set us free so we can find forgiveness, to take away our shame, our guilt, our brokenness. But more than that, he's alive and there will be a day he comes again to set up a kingdom here on earth. And so in the meantime, we now have a mission where we too are concerned with truth, justice and beauty and love, setting up his kingdom here on earth. And it sort of answers any question that people ask you. And so like I said, the last few weeks have been crazy because I've been on planes and Uber rides and every conversation has gone this way. So I was on a plane, I had the noise-proof headphones on, like I thought, this is safe now, no one's ever going to talk to me. But then the flight attendant comes and she serves you drinks. Okay, so you got to take the headphones off. She gets me, a drink, and then I think, I've got some nuts in my bag. So I take out the nuts to eat with the drink, and then I'm seeing the lady next to me look at my nuts and think, it'd be so rude to eat them by myself. Okay, here we go. So then I offer her the nuts, and then the conversation starts. Where are you going? Well, I think, it's a slow-moving train wreck. All right, so where are you going? I said, I'm going to a conference. I'm an ordained Christian minister. I give talks to people about Jesus from the Bible. Then I say to her, do you have a faith? She goes, yes, matter of fact, I'm from Germany. I'm not from America. And then I'm from Germany. I grew up with a Catholic background, but I'm exploring now. Sometimes we check out Lutheran churches, but I'm exploring. And I get her talking. I said, tell me more, tell me more, tell me more. I don't talk, tell me more. And then there'll be a pause. There'll be a pause. Because now you're this enigmatic, mysterious guru because you've said nothing. And then she finally says, well, what do you believe there's life after death? Do you believe there's life after death? So rather than immediately say yes, because that stops the conversation, I say, this is what I believe. I believe that Jesus is the Son of God and he came to us 2,000 years ago as really a human being. He did some amazing things when he was on earth. He had a concern for the poor, the weak, the oppressed, the marginalised. But more than that, he died for us on a cross, and that washes away all our shame and guilt and brokenness. And because of that, there's forgiveness and a new start. But more than that, one day he's going to come again and set up a kingdom here on earth. So in the meantime, we have a mission for love, mercy and justice and peace and restoration. So yes, I do believe in life after death. So I found that no matter what question you get asked, this is a good way of just getting it all out there, so then you have a framework to answer their specific question. And so with the original Uber driver, with a beauty conversation, we talked about the water and the wine, so I told her about Jesus, and then she said, well, what does it mean to know Jesus? And that's what I could say, well, with Jesus, you will find freedom. He will set you free from whatever owns you right now. There will be freedom, hope, peace, and forgiveness in Jesus. All right, so that's the first tool I want to talk about, just new ways of sharing the story. And something you find that's very attractive because it fits the storyline rather than opposing the storyline. So that's the first tool, how to share Jesus in a way that fits our hostile storyline. The second tool I want to give you then is how to share your own story. And I mentioned a bit of this last time I was here, so this time last year. So at some stage in the conversation then, people will ask you, well, how did you become a Christian? And that's when you say, well, I've known Jesus for all my life. I was born into a Christian family, but at the age of 16, I had to make a decision for myself. Do not do that, because you will put them to sleep. That you lost them at the instant you said you were born in a Christian family, because that confirms to them why you're a Christian. Of course you're a Christian. You're born in a Christian family. If you're born in India, you would have been a Hindu. You're born in China, you would have been a Buddhist. So you're just a product of your upbringing. And they're not listening. It's just an event. So we need to learn how to share our story as a story. And last time I was here, I shared with you, to do this, we can use the Greek rule of threes, where every story follows this rule of threes formula, where the first part is an introduction, and the middle part of the story is a body, and the final part of the story is maybe a climax or conclusion. And the transition moments are just as important. Between the intro and the body, this is where you define the mission. The mission gets articulated, the mission gets defined. Between the body and the climax is a pause, which they call the bridge moment. At the bridge moment, there's this moment where you stop and go, you recap, so you sum up everything that's happened before, the mission, you restate the mission, and then you launch into the conclusion to achieve the mission. So there's some climax, some resolution, and at the end there's a final scene which the French call the denouement, which means the new norm, the new normality, because this was the original norm, the original normality. This is the new norm, the new normality. And lastly, I shared with you how this works in romantic comedy. Remember, in the introduction, boy meets girl, girl meets boy. The mission is defined. They must fall in love. So bit by bit, they fall more and more in love. And suddenly at this moment, the guy's a doofus. He does something wrong, loses the girl. Now he's faced with this moment. Oh, do I love her? Do I not love her? Then you get the montage. Do I love her? Do I not? Do I love her? I do. Yes, I do. So you launch in the climax. There's a make or break moment, the grand romantic gesture. Got to climb a mountain, catch a train, swim an ocean, declare your love. You get the girl. And then denouement, showing the two of them together, the new norm. James Bond. There's always a little chase at the start. They chase the bad guy. They catch the bad guy. That defines the mission. There's a bigger bad guy out there after world domination. So James and the girl, bit by bit, get closer and closer to the bad guy. And then they get captured just at this moment in the evil lair. And that allows the evil guy to monologue. That's the bridge. The monologue is the bridge where you recap, define the mission, and then James and the girl have to launch in this moment. Usually it's an explosion. That's Hollywood. All the loose ends are resolving in a big explosion. No loose ends after that. And then a denouement, James and the girl together. Sports movies, you meet the team, lovable losers. Oh, there's a mission. They have to save the orphanage. If they could just win the grand final. So now they find a coach, some washed up alcoholic coach. This is a chance to find redemption. So bit by bit. And then suddenly there's this moment of doubt. Oh, are we good enough? I don't think we are. Are we good enough? I don't think we are. Yes, we are. So then training montage. So the montage is always this moment. It's the 2/3 mark. That's when I always pause the machine. I say to my wife, Steph, see, 2/3 mark. It's a 2/3 mark. And she goes, oh, I hate it when you do that. And then you go into the final game. And this even is the rule of threes. They're up, they're down. No, they're up, they win. And then the denouement, the credits roll where they are now. He's a lawyer, she's a swimming coach, whatever. Okay, Christian music. Remember Christian music? So... intro, verse 1, verse 2, the body's the chorus, Bridget, work the bridge. It's like chorus, and then the denouement, the worship leader closes in prayer, that's the denouement. All right, and you think, oh, come on, are we allowed to use this? I feel like You know, this is so illegitimate. What? Synoptic Gospels. Matthew, Mark, and Luke. The introduction, you meet Jesus, you get the whole birth narrative thing. Mission, he gets baptized by John the Baptist. That defines the mission, what he needs to do. He needs to go to Jerusalem and die for the sins of the world. So bit by bit, you journey to Jerusalem. You get into Jerusalem at the bridge moment. Suddenly Jesus is going, oh, do I want this? Do I not want this? Oh, it's a Garden of Gethsemane moment. I do. Yes, I want to do this. So he goes, dies, rises again, and the denouement is that final meeting with the disciples. So now you got to think, we got to relearn how to tell our life story using this grid, because it's just done because it's effective, it engages. So introduce yourself. Who are you? Like, who are you? I'll just break here, pause. I used to teach at a Bible college where every year we have a college mission where I bring a bunch of Bible college students to a church, and they never trust the students with a sermon, so they have to do the testimony because that's safe. You can't get the testimony wrong. And I used to sit there and think, oh my gosh, every testimony sounds exactly the same. It's got to the point where if a student got up and thought, I forgot to bring my testimony, can I borrow yours? And you can just read someone else's and it would work because they're so generic. They're so generic. So you need to make it so non-generic that only you can legitimately read out this testimony. Introduce yourself. Who are you? What is your mission? What is your mission in life? What drives you? What is your existential cry? What are you crying out for? What is the happy ending that you are looking for in your life? What must you have to have a happy ending in your life? What is your mission, your goal, your purpose? Then show how bit by bit you looked to achieve this mission in legitimate or illegitimate ways. Maybe it worked, maybe it didn't work. But suddenly there's this bridge moment, and this is where you can share the gospel, where you go, oh, it's Jesus. Jesus would fulfill my mission because he can give me freedom, forgiveness, status, security, perfection, whatever you're looking for down here. It's Jesus. And then now you show how you appropriated Jesus in your life and the denouement, what the new norm, what your new life looks like. So let me break this down on what it would look like in text form. So this is the curve form, but let me do it in bullet point form. You basically have 5 sections. In the first section, you have the introduction. So you say something like, I am blank. Describe yourself. Who are you? I am blank, and my mission is blank. Like, what is your mission? For example, give an example of what that looks like in your life. How have you tried to achieve this mission? For example. And by doing the for example, now no one else can read your testimony. This is your testimony now. Number 2, hit the body. This is the body. So I tried blank. How did you try to achieve your mission? So I tried to achieve my mission in these ways, but what's the problem? So I tried. So I should put here more information. So I tried to achieve the mission, but problems with trying to achieve my mission would be these. For example, now fill in the blank with a real example. Number 3, now you hit the bridge, the 2/3 mark. But Jesus. What has Jesus done for you? But Jesus. This is what Jesus has done to fulfill your mission. So number 4, this is the climax. That's when I decided blank. So how have you appropriated or made Jesus real in your life? How have you been loyal to Jesus? That's when I decided blank. And then 5, you're hitting the denouement, the new norm, what your life looks like now. So now, what is your life like? So now, blank, for example, blank. So that's just a simple grid. So let me read to you what my one would look like if I filled in the blanks with my life. So let's begin. Intro. This will be my testimony. So someone actually asked me this, and this happens all the time. So if I'm giving a talk, people often will ask, how did you become a Christian? And live in front of, a hostile, non-Christian, skeptical audience, this is what I would say. Or if I'm in an Uber ride and the lady asks, well, how did you become a Christian? This is what I would say. I'm a firstborn Asian who is a high achiever. So that's who I am. I'm a firstborn Asian. I'm a high achiever. My mission in life was to study hard and become a doctor. For example, I was that kid in your primary school class who always finished your work first and say, Miss, I finished my work, I need more work, please. I was that kid, for example. So let's go to the body. So I tried to achieve my mission by becoming a doctor. Okay, so I give an example. For example, in high school, while all my friends were partying, I was busy studying. But these are the problems. But the problem with being a high achiever is that you're proud and insecure at the same time. You need achievements and trophies to be somebody in your own eyes. For example, I still remember as a doctor the ward round where they showed up an x-ray of an operation I did which had gone wrong. You remember your failures more than your successes as a high achiever. Now you come to the bridge. But Jesus was perfect, so I don't have to be perfect. Yes, I'd grown up in a Christian family. Yes, I knew Jesus was the Son of God. Yes, I knew I could be forgiven. Yes, I knew I had eternal life. But I don't think I really understood that Jesus was perfect, so I don't have to pretend to be perfect. God loves me just the way I am. So that's where you've actually given the gospel. This is where you give the gospel, but in language that fits what you've been saying before. Now you come to the climax. I'll just give it off this. So I had to come to a moment where I decided, do I stay in medicine or go to a full-time ministry? I could serve God as a doctor, but I had opportunities to teach people about Jesus. And that's when I decided, you know what? I don't need medicine to feel important anymore because I have Jesus. That's Jesus perfect, so I don't have to be perfect. So now when I catch up with my doctor friends, they say, I have changed. I'm different. I don't drive like a jerk anymore, for example. I don't dominate conversations at dinner parties anymore, for example. Apparently being a high achiever makes you very insecure, but now I'm humble and secure in Jesus. So that's what I might say in shorter or longer words, depending on the situation. Now, the key to this then, and that will replace my I was born in a Christian family thing. That's what I would tell the Uber driver. That's what I would say up front if I was invited somewhere. So the hardest thing about this whole exercise is this one, the introduction. I am blank. And we're just not taught to think that way. Like, who are you? Who are you? So when I taught this course at a Bible college, I remember everyone used to just stare at the pages of paper going, who am I? And like, it really would take them half an hour to work out who they are. They just weren't used to thinking that way. And I remember one lady just saying, I can't do this. I really can't do this. I was born into a Christian family. I've known Jesus for as long as I can remember. And I kept just saying, well, who are you? Who are you? Like, just who are you? For half an hour, she had nothing. And finally, she cracked it. So if you can crack this, it just flows. So let me read to you her simplified one. And just follow how it works. I am a pastor's kid. I am a people pleaser. My mission in life is to live up to other people's standards. For example, when I was a child in Sunday school classes, I always had to know the correct answer. I was never allowed to get one wrong. I was the pastor's kid. So that's the intro. Let's go to body now. So I try to achieve my mission by living up to the expectations of everyone. For example, in my culture, it's important to be good at everything, school, music, and church. But the problem is you can never do this. For example, one time when I performed on the piano at an Stedford, my performance was ordinary compared to everyone else's. My standards weren't good enough compared with others. Now you come to the bridge. This is where you share the gospel. But with Jesus, I don't have to do this. God's expectation is that I'm perfect, but his other expectation is that I know Jesus. And if I know Jesus, then that's how I live up to his expectations. So now I don't have to worry about whether I'm good enough in other people's eyes, because I'm good enough in God's eyes. So the climax, that's when I realized I needed to trust in Jesus and what he's done for me rather than what I can do for other people. I've known Jesus all my life, but I remember being at a conference where someone gave a talk and made this very clear to me, and that's when I decided I could trust Jesus for the rest of my life. Denouement. So now I can own up to my failures, knowing that God loves me the way I am. For example, the other day at work, when the boss told me I had not done something properly, I was able to accept his critique and not make excuses or blame someone else. All right, so we're following this? Do you want one more example? Okay, one more example. So this is from Damien, who was a kick speaker about 2 years ago. This one went like this. I am adopted. I grew up not knowing who was my biological father. My adoptive family loves me, but my mission in life has always been to find belonging. For example, in my high school, I had to choose between the nerds and the jocks. I settled on the jocks because of my love for football. Okay, the body. So I tried to find belonging by achieving it. For example, you have to do what your friends do, dress how they dress, and party how they party. But the problem with looking for belonging this way is that you never truly find it. For example, at the end of high school, I thought I had earned the approval of my friends by going to a big party with them, but by the end of the party, I felt even more alone. Now you come to the bridge where you share the gospel. But Jesus gives me the belonging I'm looking for. If I live for Jesus, God adopts me to be his child. I will have God as father, Jesus as brother, and a bunch of other people in my family. So climax, that's when I realized I needed to follow Jesus. I remember opening the Bible, reading about God's promise to be my father, and then praying and asking God to adopt me as his child. Denouement. So now with Jesus, I have the belonging I need. I'm in God's family. I can still enjoy my adoptive family just for who they are. For example, I now love my adoptive parents even more. I thank them for raising me, and I wish all the more that they too could be a part of God's family with me. All right, so that's the grid. And I noticed there here that I left out, there's another for example here. All right, any questions on this? So what we're going to do is we're going to have a break for about 5 or 10 minutes. And then when we come back, I'll explain to you what you're going to do. But you're actually going to have to find a piece of paper and try to do this for yourself. And it's okay if you spend half an hour looking at a blank page, because that's exactly what happens to my Bible college students. But maybe in the break, you can start thinking, who am I? Really, who am I? All right, so let's have a break. All right, so what we're going to do now is you're going to have 20 minutes to work out who you are. So 20 minutes. So get a piece of paper out or a phone or a laptop and just use this grid. And this is all I want from you. One sentence for each blank. So please don't make it more than a sentence. It's just a summary. So my one would be, I am an Asian high achiever. My mission is to become a doctor. For example, at school, I was like this. So I tried to be a doctor, for example, but the problems with being a doctor was this, for example, but Jesus is perfect, so I don't have to be perfect. That's when I decided I could give up medicine and go into full-time ministry. So now my doctor friends don't recognize me. I'm not a jerk anymore at parties, for example. So just something like that, just one sentence for each blank, not a paragraph, just one sentence. That pastor's kid would have been, I am a pastor's kid. My mission is to be a people pleaser. For example, at Sunday school, I had to get all the questions right. So I tried really hard to please people. For example, I had to be good at music, school, and chemistry or whatever. But the problem is you can never be good enough. For example, at an Stedford, I was ordinary, even though I gave my best. But Jesus is perfect, so I don't have to be perfect. That's when I decided I could just trust in Jesus and not have to pretend to be perfect. So now I can own my mistakes. For example, at work, when my boss pulled me up, I was able to own the criticism and not make excuses. Does that make sense? So that's all you have to do. Fill in the blank with a sentence. If you can't see from back there, just come up the front, take a picture, and then go back to your seat. But you've got 20 minutes. And then after 20 minutes, you're going to share your testimony with the person next to you. And you can just help each other smooth, make it sharp or whatever. And then we're going to hear from volunteers who are brave enough to say, hey, this is what my one sounds like in this grid. And we'll see how we go. All right, so we've got 20 minutes. Let's go. All right, how are we going? Have most people finished? No, not really. Yeah. It's harder than it looks, hey? Like you just think all I've got to do is come up with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, like 11 sentences. But you're basically being asked to deconstruct yourself for the first time ever. Like take yourself apart and then rebuild yourself in front of your own eyes. All right.
How long did you take?
I reckon the one I gave you, I think that took me 2 to 3 years to finally to run smoothly. So it's definitely my first draft, my second draft, my third draft. But now it's come to a point where it just flows quite smoothly to Uber drivers, and also when I'm asked up front in front of an audience, like how did you become a Christian? Now it flows quite smoothly. But I think it took me 2 to 3 years to come up with that finished product. So it's a lot harder than it looks. So who wants to have a go? Like who's finished? Who wants to give it a crack? And do we have a spare mic for whoever wants to read it out? That one there. Yeah, sure. Are you good on you? Yeah, just jump on stage and then grab that mic. Thanks. Is he on?
Am I on? Yeah.
Oh, well done.
Awesome. So my name's Keegan. I'm the youngest of 3 boys. My mission was to prove that I was better than them. They're 5 and 7 years older than me. For example, I knew their exact ATARs, or whatever their end of year 12 school mark was. For the entirety of my high school, I knew what those marks were. So I tried to push myself beyond the limits at school. For example, I did 4 major works in year 12, and most of them were subjects that my brothers did as well. But no matter how hard or how good you are, it never satisfies, and you'll always push yourself to get to that next place without ever actually reaching it. In year 12, for example, in year 12, I had to be dragged out of an exam because I was having a panic attack and couldn't breathe, and I couldn't stop crying. But Jesus showed me that I don't need to be perfect or to be accepted. I just needed to know and love him. That's when I decided to accept his offer of freedom from the slavery of reputation and comparison. So now I live with the weight taken off my shoulders and my chest. For example, I now notice when I'm anxious, for it's no longer a constant and a pervasive feeling. It's actually the exception rather than the rule.
Thanks, Keegan. Give him a hand. Oh, well done. So hopefully we're picking up on the pattern. The mission is actually a God-given legitimate cry. Like it's a God-given thing. We're in the image of God. We have a cry for eternity. So it's a God-given legitimate cry. It's just that we've been trying to fulfill it in all the wrong ways. We're trying to make too much of the good things God has given us to fulfill this cry. But when we find Jesus, it's like, it's Jesus I was looking for. Jesus gives me the happy ending I was looking for. And in the words of Sam Hilton, who taught me this, I owe this to him, he's the only way of giving me the happy ending I'm looking for. So we're not preaching syncretism. He's the only way. And it's a far better happy ending than the one I would have found anyway. So it's got people wishing Jesus was true. He is true. But now people realise, wow, I too want that. That's way more believable. I want that to be true. So this is the happy ending I was looking for. I was looking for it all the wrong places. But Jesus gives me the happy ending, but only Jesus will give me that happy ending. Otherwise, I would destroy other things or they destroy me. And it's a far better happy ending than I ever dreamed of. So that's one way. I'm not saying you have to do it that way, but that's one strategy. Who else wants to go? Yeah, sure. Come forward, please. Come on. Well done. Yeah, tilt the mic. Yeah.
So I'm Doug, and I'm a non-talker. My mission in life was to do just about everything in silence. So, for example, my ideal weekend was, and probably still is, going hunting in the hills, just the weekend, me, no one else, just walking around. It's really nice. So during my last, for example, during the last few years of school, throughout term time, I wouldn't call my parents, because I didn't want to answer all the questions. How you going? How's your day? What'd you do? In fact, after I finished school as well, I also, lived in the same town and worked at the same company as my dad and just didn't speak. He's kind of like me. So, yep, I tried all those things, but I guess that breeds loneliness. Did and does. And so I remember there was one time where I found out secondhand that a friend had been struggling for a few years quite severely with depression. And I was like, I wanted to know that before, so I could walk with you. So, yeah, that wasn't fantastic. When I realised that Jesus already knows all my thoughts, he knows exactly what I'm going through, he knows what everyone else is going through, it's like, well, I might as well just tell him. Like, I don't have to keep that. I can just share freely. I don't have to worry about anyone, asking all those rubbish questions that everyone hates to ask, So that's when I decided, Jesus give me a family, Christian and non-Christian. I don't have to worry about anything really, so I might as well just share myself. Jesus started that. I'm just going to keep on doing that. So now on a good day, you'll struggle to shut me up, which I still struggle with. I don't want to speak. I'd much, but I want to share that relationship that I have with Jesus, because that kind of openness is really joyful. Time with a good friend is, far more invigorating than, walking around the hills by yourself. Maybe. So I guess now, because I know that everything I do, I don't have to worry about keeping things to myself, nor do I want to. I want to share my family with not only my Christian family, but I also, call my parents now, once in a while. So that openness now is, Jesus has given that to me by giving me a family that I know cares for me. He cares for me, and that goes much deeper than anything else I had before I knew and loved Jesus.
All right, thanks, Doug. Thank you. All right, one last example. One final. Yeah, come forward, please. Thank you so much. All right, thanks so much.
So I'm Coralie. I grew up on the Central Coast mostly, and I am your typical party girl. And my mission in life was to have as much fun as possible. For example, I rarely attended school after year 8. You would mostly find me at the beach or anywhere else, at a friend's house, in bed. And I lived for the weekends, pretty much. So I tried to find all my fun in, when I got a bit older, in drinking and relationships and everything else that you can imagine like that. But I realised how messed up I was, and all of my friends from school have addictions, have been in domestic violent relationships, have been cheated on or cheated on their partners, and no one from my circle of friends at school is happy. When my auntie told me about Jesus, I was 19, and I just decided to give him a go. 2 weeks later, I did a diploma in Christian studies with this thing called Cornerstone, which completely changed my life. For example, I have found joy in my Lord and Saviour and my new family in Christ.
Thank you so much. All right, so thank you for sharing. Thank you for deconstructing yourselves publicly and then reconstructing yourselves with Jesus. Just a few other thoughts to think about, and then we can open it to question and answer time. So what we've done there is shown them that Jesus is real, and we've shown them how it works and how it lives. So I guess traditionally when we share Jesus, he becomes just a set of proposition points to believe, like bullet points on a PowerPoint slide. This is what we believe. But now we're actually presenting Jesus more and more as a real person, like with stories from the Bible, and also how this lives and works in real life. I remember Timothy Keller sharing from the book of Acts 16, how there are 3 people who converted Christianity. You had Lydia, the businesswoman, you had the slave girl who was demon-possessed, and then you had the jailer. And they all had different existential points into Jesus. For Lydia, it was a reasoned discussion. It's our traditional Bible studies where we give them points and we argue back and forth. So she was more of a cognitive thinker. Whereas the slave girl, she had a power encounter with Jesus. She was in a very dark place, literally, like demon-possessed and all. And somehow there's a power encounter. So she experiences the power of Jesus in her life. And then you have the jailer, who's your classic salt of the earth. You know, he doesn't want you messing with his emotions. Don't bring me to church, you know, because there'll be cupcakes and doilies and a morning tea roster. Don't get me singing. I don't want to stand up. I don't want to be emotional. But, you know, I have a strong sense of duty and tradition. I work to support my family. And so what sort of converted him was seeing how it works in Paul and Silas's life. So the testimony of their life. So we sort of need to arm ourselves with all 3 sort of tools of evangelism. Yes, there's a place for the reason discussion for the cognitive thinkers like Lydia, the businesswoman. There's a time for experience and the power of Jesus in your life, and that was a slave girl. And there's a time also for testimonies like we've just shared tonight. This is what Jesus looks like in my life. This is how it works. So whether we like it or not, rightly or wrongly, whether we don't think it should work this way, well, this is how it does work, all right? This is how it works, whether we like it or not, rightly or wrongly, this is how it does work. More and more, we used to think it should go this way. This is true, so you need to believe it. And if you believe it, you need to do it. So typically that's how sermons and Bible studies work. This is true, it's in the Bible. Now you need to believe it. These are the propositional bullet points you need to believe. Now you believe it, you need to do it, like apply it. This is the application of the Bible passage. But more and more we find it's working the other way. People suddenly realise, hey, this is doable. What you have is doable. Hey, maybe if it's doable, it's believable. And if it's believable, hey, it must be true. So that's a bit like the jailer in Acts 16. Hey, what on earth do you guys have going on in your life? Because what you have right now is way more doable than what I have in my life. I'm about to kill myself because I've failed my job, my tradition, my duty. But you guys are happy to stay in jail singing songs to your God. You seem to have a much more doable life than I have. What you have works. It's real. Hey, maybe it's believable. Hey, maybe it's true. So that's part of how people are becoming Christians and believing Jesus, through seeing and hearing our story through our testimony. Also, another thing I share is more and more wisdom is the entry point. So traditionally we try to come in through the front door, giving salvation, as in you need forgiveness, you need to be saved, you need eternal life. Oh, and there's this other part of the Bible called wisdom, Proverbs. We don't know what to do with that, but really, this is really what you need. But I'm finding more and more, wisdom is the entry point, and along the way, people will find salvation. So what we do is we show, by and large, if you have Jesus, yes, there'll be suffering. There's no guaranteed pain-free life, but by and large, you will have a wisdom that you can navigate life with. By and large, that's the book of Proverbs. By and large, if you have a good functional relationship with God, things just work better. Somehow you'll have a better work-life balance. If you're faithful to your wife, somehow you'll have a happier marriage. If you're, a good father, somehow your kids will respect you. If you're honest at work, somehow your business will tend to flourish, by and large. And so there's a wisdom to the Christian way of living. So if you show wisdom, along the way, people will find salvation. Because there are 3 categories of knowledge in the Bible. There's salvation knowledge, how to be saved. There's providence knowledge in the Bible, how to survive each day, day by day, guidance and prayer. But there's also the wisdom category, how to live in tune with God's design in this world. And if you can find that, by and large, you'll have a wisdom that you can navigate life with. And I think we can use wisdom as an entry point as well. And that's what the testimonies show. Somehow you've discovered a wisdom. And people think, hey, I want that. That's doable. Maybe it's believable. Maybe it's true. And I shared earlier today that people are also finding belonging. And then they find behaviour. And then they find belief. We sort of think it should go the other way around. You're going to believe in Jesus, and because you believe in Jesus, you're going to behave as a Christian, your life will change, and if you behave as a Christian, now you need to find a church, you need to find other Christians. But more and more, we're finding in the Australian storyline, in the 21st century, people find a belonging first. They meet some Christian friends, they're all right, they become their trusted network of friends. Soon you start behaving like they do, and soon you start believing what they believe. And it just seems to the way that people journey into belief, and it takes 1 or 2 years to form a new trusted network of friends, to have a lifestyle change, and then to have a paradigm shift. James Veltmeyer from Tasmania tells me that his rule of thumb, by and large, is if people have 6 Christian friends in their trusted network, these changes will start happening. So we're always trying to think, how can I tell my friends about Jesus, when really what we can also be doing is, how can I find 6 Christian friends for my friend? Like, how can I get 6 Christian friends to be hanging out with my friend on a regular basis so that now they're in that trusted network? And it takes 2 years. I lived in America for 5 years. And when I came back to Australia, I had the reverse culture shock. And part of the reverse culture shock is, I have no friends. I have no friends. So on a Friday night, when I just want to unwind with a trusted bunch of friends, I've got no one to ring. Like, who am I going to hang out with? I've got no trusted network. Now I do, but it takes 2 years. And that's what we're trying to do, bring 6 Christian friends into the trusted network of friends. And my wife and I, we have a lot of friends in Sydney. And then we suddenly realise, oh my gosh, none of these people are from Sydney. So they actually are going through what I went through. They're going through 2 years without anyone as a trusted friend. And my wife and I have just naturally fallen into that vacuum just because we're taking an interest in people. And the key is hospitality. If we really want to know how to tell our friends about Jesus in the 21st century, if I could just give one word to sum up what I've just done in the last 2 hours, it's hospitality. And you never notice prams until you have to buy a pram. You never notice roof racks until you have to buy roof racks. So, wow, they're everywhere. They're rounded ones, they're flat ones, they're elongated ones. They're everywhere. Now look for hospitality in the Bible. Oh my gosh, it is everywhere. We just have had a blind spot. We didn't realize it's there. So Jesus in the Synoptics and John, he's always enjoying hospitality to the point where he's called a glutton and a drunkard. He's doing too much eating and drinking. That's what he's criticised for with the people who disagree with him. Jesus says to his followers, you are to love those who disagree with you. Anyone can love those who agree with you. That's not love. Love is to love those who disagree with you. Love them, pray for your enemies, bless those who persecute you, and eat and drink with those who disagree with you. Jesus did it so much, he was criticized for it. So we should try to do it so much. We too are criticized for it. Too much eating and drinking with our non-Christian friends. And the word hospitality, so that's the idea of hospitality. The word appears in Romans, Acts, Timothy, Titus, I think Philemon, Hebrews, Peter, and James. It is everywhere. And so we've always concentrated on the word gifts, teaching, preaching, evangelism, but it's always required hospitality for the space to exist. So for many of us, it's impossible to open up our homes. Maybe we're in an apartment or whatever, but that just means we need to come up with creative ways to do hospitality. Creative ways of hospitality. Maybe that means doing the coffee run at work. Hey, lunch is on me. But just something, so creative ways. If you're a doctor, put yourself on the cake roster. There's always the nurses. Why are the doctors never on the cake roster? Put yourself on the cake roster. Hospitality. And if you have a home, if God has blessed you with a home, hospitality. It's got to be hospitality. Opening up the private spaces so that people can feel safe talking about interests, values, and worldviews. All right, that's just a lot of stuff I just downloaded. Questions? Any questions? Yes?
What's your Uber rating?
Well, what is my Uber rating? It's really, really funny. It's 4.75, I think. Not that I'm checking it, but it's 4.75. Because it dropped really low. And I thought, what is going wrong? Oh, I know. I'm in the back seat. And I think, so I had to sit in the front seat. Yeah. So, but it is amazing. Once you're in the front seat, like I've had so many conversations, it's going really well. Thanks. Yeah. But the sequence is always, do you have a faith? And you just listen to them, treat them like a person, don't argue. Some moment they ask you about your faith. I tell them a story about Jesus. And then they will actually ask me now, tell me more. Like, tell me more. How do I know this Jesus? And really, we're just sharing Jesus. You know. And at the end, they're always saying, well, give me a website to go to. And I give them a website and it always, I don't know, people are really excited. They want to know more about Jesus. All right, another question. Yes?
Do you have any advice for, say, I've been on long car trips with people and they've spoken to me about what they think about Christianity and morality, and so my most recent experience was a work friend who told me that she thought Christian schools are nice for morality, Christianity is nice for morality, she knew I was a Christian, and but they don't reciprocate with, so what do you think? And I'm always like, and they're like, hey, there's McDonald's.
Yeah. The question is, what happens is you let them talk, you treat them as a person, but they don't reciprocate, they don't ask you what you think. I think it could mean, one, that they don't want to know what you think. So that you've done the most you can, but they're not interested. And at that moment, maybe you've done the most you can humanly do, and that's all we're asked to do. We do our bit, God does his bit, but we can only... What they teach you in counselling is you just work out what are you responsible for and what can you control. So don't beat yourself up for what you're not responsible for and what you can't control. So you can't control your friend's level of interest. And if they're not playing the social nicety game, so maybe they're not aware of social etiquette, you let them talk. So you can't control that. But I would just ask another question. Well, tell me more. Tell me more. And at some stage, I find if you get them having to keep going more and more, tell me more, tell me more, tell me more, there's just this awkward moment where they find that, you tell me what you think, you know. And I find that seems to happen every time for me. But again, you can only control what you can control. One more question. Yes?
Sam, in your kind of series, there seems to be a little bit of a kind of clunk when you change gears into But Jesus. Have you got any sort of suggestions on how to make that a little bit of less clunky gear change?
Yeah, so the question is how to make it not so clunky. I think for me, maybe just more practice. So maybe I'd need to go back and put a fourth year into it. But I'm not too worried about the clunk because I was sharing someone else. What makes a story is there actually have to be two buts. So the but is naturally clunky and it gets people, huh? It snaps their attention. So I teach preachers, the difference between an event and a story is the word but. So if I said to you, we went to a wedding and my boy Cooper turned up at the wedding with denim shorts and a tank top, that's sort of funny, but it's just an event. And you're just laughing out of politeness right now. It's like me showing you a spinning bow tie. Look, it's a spinning bow tie. Look, here's my boy Cooper in a red tank top and denim shorts and rubber gum boots. You think, okay, yeah, I get it. It's funny, but it's not that funny. But so you need the word but. You need to have a mission. So when we went to a wedding last year or the other year, at a wedding, you are meant to get dressed up. That's your mission. But no matter how much we tried, we couldn't get our son Cooper to wear what we wanted him to wear. Instead, he wore a red tank top, denim shorts, and rubber gum boots to the wedding. But when we turn up to the wedding, everyone's going, wow, look at Cooper, look what he gets to wear. How come I don't get to wear that? And suddenly every parent's thinking, oh, why didn't we just let our kids wear what they wanted? And every guy's looking at his wife like, why didn't you let me wear shorts and gum boots? And see, that's funny now because there was a mission, there was a but, and then there was a but. And so somehow I'm not too worried about the clunkiness because it sort of gets people's attention. And I think that's just how stories function. There is that zzz moment as the word but comes in. Otherwise, it's just a sequencing of events, but with no crisis and resolution, which is what the but does. All right, I think my time is up. I'm going to hand you to Sam Hilton.
Let's give Sam a hand.
There you go.